Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another webinar from Friendly Focused Foundations. I am Paul.
The Foundations webinar.
And we've got a special webinar today, which is all about OTs in housing. And especially I've got my housing OT and my Super OT t-shirt on, in case you're wondering. Yes, I did do the decorating in it. So, hi Foundations, if this is the first webinar you've been to, we support local authorities and home improvement agencies across England. We're funded by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, and we're here to help. We do lots of free training events and workshops, and you can find all the details at our website.
Find out more at foundations.uk.com. Poll time. Let's see what you think.
And so, as usual, let's do a quick poll to see who we've got today and where you're watching from. So if you're on Zoom, it should pop up for you in a second. If not, it's probably the pop-up blocker on your browser that's stopping it. And if you're over on the Facebook group, if you just pop your answer into the message. So there's the poll. What's your job and where are you watching from today? Okay, thank you all for voting or popping your answers in the chat. So I guess as we'd expect, the vast majority of people watching today are OTs, a few managers, a few housing folks as well, and the majority of people also watching from their home office, dining table or living room. Just 10% back in the office. And only one person watching from bed this month. So up and about a bit more. There we go. I'll share the results with you so you can see them. Please use the chat box as we go along. Pop your questions in there, thoughts, comments as we go. We'll keep them recorded and always a very useful addition to the day. Just for all of you watching, particularly if you're involved with submitting the annual DFG returns, you should have received an email from the government asking you to do that. If you haven't and your DFG manager has changed since last year, please let us know. It has a very similar set of questions to last year, including asking how many OTs and trusted assessors are involved in the DFG process within your housing departments, which is where this webinar came from, actually. We had a list from last year, and I asked Lorraine, who you'll meet in a minute, to go and speak to a few of them. And you'll meet some of them later this afternoon as well. And just another quick reminder that in the last webinar, we talked about share adaptations and are they all the same? So we've got this little plan and this little picture and a persona to go with it. So if you'd be interested in submitting how you would adapt this bathroom and how much would it cost, please email us at info@foundations.uk.com. We're going to collect them all, compare them all and see what the similarities and differences are across the country in share adaptation design. And just before we get onto the content, I just wanted to let you know that we're going to do another webinar next week, but it's going to be a little bit different and it's not going to be on Zoom. So we're going to use a new system called AirMeet, where as well as having the presentations like this, there's also a set of virtual tables where you can sit and have a chat to each other or with your favorite manufacturers and suppliers before and after the presentations. And there's also a speed networking area where you can have a random 2-minute conversation with anybody else who's there. And the good thing is if you're not very good at ending a conversation, it automatically fades out after 2 minutes. So no awkward goodbyes, it just switches off after 2 minutes. But you can keep track of who you've spoken to and contact them afterwards if you want to. And one of the other nice things it does, it has emoji responses, so you can give kind of a round of applause or hearts or thumbs up as you go through the presentation. So details would have been on your Foundations newsletters that you've had this week, and we'll send out another one in the next few days with all the details on. It's something we're trying that's a little bit different, but as well as providing content and talks to you, it also gives you the opportunity to talk to each other and manufacturers and suppliers as well. So it'd be good to see you there this time next week. So we've got a range of OTs and a trusted assessor who are going to talk this afternoon. So to kick it off, I'll hand over to Foundation's very own OT, and I'll hand over to Lorraine Epstein. There you go, Lorraine.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Welcome everybody to the first integrated working webinar. I would like to go forward and here we are. Okay, I'd like to introduce myself. First of all, I did actually introduce myself last month, but just really to say that I'm an occupational therapist. I am a regional advisor. I work for Foundations. My area is the West Midlands or Midlands, but I do cover the whole country as well in relation to occupational therapy support issues. Okay, so first of all, I wanted to say that I'm the first OT that Foundations have had, so it's a contemporary role. What is my role? Just to summarize, really, it's an ever-growing role. It doesn't stay static, but in line with Foundations, and Foundations' aim is to actually encourage good practice and a smooth journey for the service user with DFGs. My role is to encourage good practice. How hopefully I'm going to manage that is in the webinars. So we're going to have the webinars, regular webinars, especially at the moment in the climate that we're in, on Facebook, on Zoom. We're also having, and we've started having, a Midlands managers meeting. And we will be going on in the new year to have OT national meetings. So hopefully there's going to be a meeting with which will focus on, one part will focus on OTs working within the council social services. Another part will be focusing on OTs working integrated within practice, and another section will be for TAs. I'm also interested, and we are interested in training. There's a wide range of training courses that are actually on the Foundation's website. We are developing new courses, so I suppose what I'm saying is watch this space. Hopefully some of the courses will be quite OT focused. We do have a basic DFG course at the moment, and there are some other courses, but we will be introducing some new ones. I'll also be involved in research. And firstly, I think the research will be, we're developing with another lead OT, is a triage tool. We're looking at online assessments. We've got a working group, so hopefully there will be actually an assessment online that people can go to. Not yet, in about a year's time it should be completed, or maybe sooner. But there will be a tool where people can go online and see the eligibility for major stroke minor adaptations. It's in the very embryonic stages at the moment. So yes, that's it. I mean, watch this space again. And once again, it's about supporting the DFG journey for the client and hopefully making it a smooth process. Okay, so I suppose what I just need to do is highlight some of the reports that we've been involved in, foundations have been involved in. One of which, and it's, you know, I've just picked out about integrated working, and just a couple of points. There is far more, which it's actually on the internet. So if you want to access it, you can Google it. But adaptations without delay, I'm sure that a lot of you will know about it. 2019. But it does advocate the rights of, or advocate for integrated services, because it can reduce delays in the installation of adaptations. And it also supports the fact that integration can assist OTs to work with our colleagues, our technical colleagues, but also our grants officers as well, but developing bespoke adaptations. The other review that I'm just highlighting and touching upon, which foundations have been involved in, is the external review 2018. As all of you, I'm sure, are aware, that it's a two-part process, isn't it, with DFGs? Social care, and then it goes to the grant application to housing, which can lead to delay, can lead to frustration. And what it says is that integrated teams are essential in all areas to simplify it. It speeds up the customer journey. So I've actually been talking to OTs within the community. We've been having, not face-to-face, but we've been working online via Teams. And I've had quite a lot of conversations about integrated working. And I just wanted to summarize, really, because we've got the other OTs and TA talking about, and managers talking about integrated working. But I wanted to really just summarize my discussions and just out of the conversations I've had, what people have said. So what people were saying is that it leads to more effective communication with the customer, that they can go out and see people quicker. And it's actually helps to have a common goal that is just you and your client working together. And I suppose seeing that end goal, that it's smoother, that it also focuses on needs, not just the delivery of a particular service. Okay, so what we are going to do today. Today, the aims of the webinar, we're going to be exploring the role of the OT and the TA within a council and also a home improvement agency. We're going to be understanding the impact of integrated working. So I suppose what we hopefully be looking at, and I know the presenters are going to be talking about this, but what are the strengths and what are the development areas? There are far more strengths than there are the development areas, but nothing's perfect, is it? So they're going to be talking about the future and hopefully what they aim to do to make it even smoother. And also we're going to be reviewing impact of integration on timescales and outcomes. What I was going to say was, if you've got questions, you can use the chat. We did actually have some questions that were sent in last night, actually. So some of the presenters are going to try and answer some of those questions. If we don't get round to answering all the questions, if people want to email perhaps the individual presenter, or you can email me, my email address is going to come up, then we can try and answer all of them for you. So the running order, Paul actually touched on it, and we included it, but we're going to have Shelly Faulkner, Christine Cresswell, Lauren Nicholson and Amelia Fawcett, Louise Powell, Pamela Armstrong, and with Louise Powell is Alison Hughes. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over to the first speaker. Our first speaker is Shelly. So I think, Shelly, it's over to you now.
Hello, thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar, and thank you to Paul and Lorraine and Foundations for welcoming me along to present on my understanding, the understanding of integrated occupational therapy within Worcestershire. So today I'll present to you a little bit about me and the role that I'm in, integrated within the Home Improvement Agency within the county. The aims of this presentation are to provide some clarity on the assessor for adaptation roles in Worcestershire County, so the difference between occupational therapist and trusted assessor and the similarities as well. To give an understanding of our team and the wider multidisciplinary team and the holistic nature of occupational therapy. To create an understanding of these integrated roles and provide you with some resources and an opportunity for questions and comments on integrated occupational therapy with a summary and some ideas to maybe take away. There will be a number of acronyms used throughout the presentation, merely to simplify the slides and provide concise information. I provided a document over for Lorraine. I'm not sure if this has been shared or can be shared in the chat box. I've put down at the bottom, please feel free to ask any questions or comment in the chat box throughout if you've got any questions on these. If realistically, we all use a lot of acronyms to as a part of our role, but does that really help us, or does it hinder the roles and the clarity of abbreviations? So on the document sent out as well, it has some questions, maybe if you want to continue some working on that as CPD. At the top of this slide, I've said, what does integrated mean? And essentially, it means cooperatively working to provide a shared outcome. This is brief explanations as provided on the internet or in dictionaries or other integrated team definitions. So a bit about me. My journey is that from patient to practitioner. After sustaining an incomplete spinal cord injury and multiple fractures to my left arm in 2013, I received therapy to regain upper limb mobility. I was immediately amazed by the work of the occupational therapists and subsequently applied to study my BSc at the University of the West of England, graduating from there in 2017. Quite a quick turnaround. My placements were the first step to me going back into full-time employment, and that was quite a tricky time, but really made me learn about myself as a human and the therapeutic use of self. Following my degree, I moved to Norfolk to complete a year of rotations, where I found that my passion really does lie in working in community services. So following then, I returned to the Midlands to begin a role working with predominantly housing adaptations, a role commissioned through the NHS community occupational therapy teams here initially and historically had been. I wasn't taking over from anybody, and I started that role with counterparts in the north of the county. I covered the south, and as that role has gone on, it's retendered each year. So I now work directly for Millbrook Healthcare, integrated into the HIA, the Home Improvement Agency team here, covering the whole of Worcestershire. So anyone that pays their council tax to any one of the 6 districts within the county. I began as a lone clinician with this team on April the 1st of this year, amidst the first, and hopefully only, but the first COVID-19 lockdown, initially creating policies, procedures, public information, my own job role, working from home. And I restarted visits in July, and I have a caseload now of around 60 clients. One of the questions that came in yesterday was, how do we manage our caseload? How long are they opened for? And how do we decide when cases can be closed? In essentially, the holistic nature of an occupational therapist is to assess needs and interventions to meet those needs. So I would deem a case to be suitable to be closed once needs are met, whether that's through ourselves or whether referrals have been successful or the client has capacity and has declined interventions offered. But cases can be opened from anywhere, hours, days to months. I have one case ongoing that's been going for over 3.5 years that I've picked up. So it's all client-centered and individualized to that client. So you can't really say how long a case would be open for until it's suitable to be closed. And how do I keep it occupational therapy based when it may feel more technically focused? We use Case Manager, and for that system, as most people that use the foundation system will know, everyone on the system is classed as a caseworker. So that in itself has created challenges with the terminology used within the team, but actually it's given me an opportunity to explain the differences between a clinical role and being the lone clinician as opposed to the caseworkers there. I digress slightly. Additional to my day-to-day role, I am an active part of the OT Hub, and one of our 356 participants today is Jamie, the founding father of the OT Hub. So please feel free to reach out to us. There is a wealth of information on the hub, and you can search for housing and things on there, and I will be sharing the acronym sheet through there as well. And I also am a mentor and a course leader for Backup Trust, the spinal cord injury charity. I'll mention a bit more about charities later on. So how my role integrates within the Worcestershire Promoting Independent Living service. Our team is predominantly caseworkers with a housing options advisor, trusted assessor and myself. The interventions that I'm involved in stem from a holistic assessment of need. So these can, I've skipped a bit there. So going back to the difference between occupational therapist and trusted assessor remits of roles, the similarities are that we assess for that need. The differences being in the level of qualification or learning to be able to carry out that role. So detailed in those two columns is the differences really quite broad and vague for this county, and that will differ. There are different ways of working throughout the country, and we are aware of that. The liaison between myself and our trusted assessor is that part of my role is to support him and his learning and the interventions he's able to provide, because those are more routine: a bath out, shower in, a straight stair lift, a straightforward ramp with a singular ramp and gradient and platform. The more complex issues comes from my qualification, but also my own personal experience, professional experience, and the CPD that I have to do alongside my role and integral to my professionalism. So I'm able to support him, and he's able to do the casework elements on Case Manager that I currently don't do. I do the intervention part and see that through, but the casework, the technical elements, he's able to do those. So it does require a lot of liaison, and there were some concerns in the county about trusted assessor roles. And it was, there are elements, yes, of a business structure things being more cost effective for services, but there is a huge element of occupational therapy in all of these assessment processes. So I provide a lot of translation for the team, the clinical understanding and the shared language that occupational therapists have. In a nutshell then, the interventions that I provide are major adaptations, including private works, so advice and guidance on those if people choose to do those themselves, or through the Home Improvement Agency with a small fee, as with the DFG works. Housing options and rehousing, writing letters of support to councils or for our housing options advisor. Minor adaptations, provision of equipment through our through the community equipment store service, or advising individuals on where they can purchase handheld aids from, or next of kin that they can go and look into things themselves. We also have AKW, Indy, different places within Worcestershire, and we're looking at ourselves setting up an independent living skills centre to be able to give a chance for people to see how things work and to assess for that need potentially. I'm quite fortunate within my role to be quite autonomous, and I'm able to prioritise cases myself and assess for urgency, with those being things like hospital discharge or falls prevention, admission avoid safeguarding concerns, self-neglect. So the systems that we use, there are some that I'm able to use: Case Manager, Millflow for our minor adaptations. Care Notes is our local NHS system that I don't have access to, but am able to liaise with the NHS services with consent from clients to obtain more health-based information. The systems are a key part of what we do. There are a large percentage of the work that we do to input the information we obtain. So to be able to work as a lone clinician, I'm able to manage my own time and work within that circle of control as to what I am able to do with the time that I'm given in my working hours. So hopefully some of these points and images will create some ideas or remind you of how holistic the nature of an occupational therapist is and the benefits of integrated working. So it's always about the client, patient, service user, and care for them and their assessed needs, including their social circle, their carers support, complete referrals into the Association of Carers or the Association for Young Carers, direct links into charities for peer support and guidance for individuals with conditions that they previously had no understanding of. So working within a community with those individuals to meet their own individual SMART goals and aims to be able. I've just seen a comment pop up around professional supervision. We have a senior occupational therapist in another HIA down in Dorset, and I get direct supervision from her. I also have seniors that I casework with within the county that I can have ad hoc conversations with. But
Shelly, sorry, I was just going to say there's another question there as well, which I can tell you. Do you prioritise at all on care costs, e.g. reduce carers from 2 to 1? So
there is more of a drive towards a business model alongside the client centeredness of the care elements, and there is a large drive on reducing care costs. There are a number of interventions that will reduce care costs because you can train somebody on single-handed care, or you can look into how the family, who are the only person that individual wants to have providing that level of informal care, we can then look at that circle of their support network and work with adult social care if it's an assessed care need. There isn't a huge drive from my role to deal with things because of the financial nature of them, because of the cost of them. If it's an assessed need, then we will work around how we achieve that intervention to best meet that need. I hope that answers the question. If you have any more, my email address comes up shortly, and please feel free to email me. I might be able to explain things a bit better there. I've included some references throughout the presentation. I was keen to do that because I'm not great at CPD or keeping track of what I do, why I've done it. And I just like this to be a bit of a reminder to everyone, including myself. CPD is important, and just spend some time getting those documents in order. And if you can do some journal article reflecting, that's actually quite a nice, easy way to start off, because it takes you back to your to the theory behind the practice, the occupational science elements of the therapy. So yeah, to summarize, we're holistic in our nature, and there's an infographic there about how really we encompass everything that includes that individual's world and being, and the benefits of this integrated working have shown within only 6 months, a little bit more, but because in spite of COVID-19, because of the limitations, it has been difficult joining a team that were integrated previously, and it's working really well. So this is my my contact details. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the following presentations.
Shelly, thank you very much. That was really interesting.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you've got your references there.
Sorry, those are the references and some links. And then coming up next,
Christine, just before you go, Shelly, that there's quite a few questions on the chat. Do you want to go on it and answer it, or do you want people to email you? It's just that I suppose we're sort of we need to go on to Christine now.
Yeah. Would it be best for me to copy those? If anyone has asked a question, would you be quite happy just to put in the chat whether you would like me to collate the answers and put them all together in a document somehow, or just respond to them one by one in chat there? That would be great. And then we can move on to Christine, and I'll do both if needed.
Thank you very much, Shelly. Round of applause. I can't do it now, but yeah, round of applause. Thank you. We're going to go on to Christine now. Christine, there she is.
Hiya, well
I
done.
can see her. I'm going to pass the microphone over to you now.
Great. Right. Let's go. Gosh. Okay, doke. I need to go back. What am I doing? Oh, I know what I'm doing. Okay. Afternoon. My name is Christine, and I'm one of the senior occupational therapists who lead the housing pilot in Essex. This presentation will outline our housing occupational therapy role pilot, funding, the criteria and the referral. It will also provide information on the challenges that we've faced in the pilot, the impact of timelines and the outcomes that are achieved for the person and for the services that we have. The housing pilot aims to enable adults to receive priority intervention for major adaptations when they have had a period in hospital, short stay in a care home or in a step-down facility. Our goal is to improve and establish efficient and effective pathways to support discharge when adaptations are required. And this is really to enable the adult to have accessible housing to meet their current and future needs, to achieve the desired outcomes and prevent, reduce and delay readmission to hospital if possible. So that's really what the pilot's kind of the main sort of aims are. So the pilot background. The pilot has been possible through agreement from senior management across Essex councils using funding from the annual Better Care Fund. It also aims to increase spending from disabled facilities grants allocation. The BCF came from 2013 spending review when the central government focused on sharing resources, creating a single pooled budget for health and social care. So there are sort of conditions for use of the Better Care Fund. It was there to prioritise hospital discharge. It's there to avoid delayed transfers of care, and it's to avoid emergency hospital admissions. So it's got very much a prevention role. 90% of local areas, through the review, 90% of local areas improved how they were working together. There was much more sort of integrated practice and place-based planning. It increased the success and use of resources to get the best outcomes for individuals and populations, and the people that they will refer to us for input. Okay, so the senior occupational therapist housing, I have to apologise for the word sloth. I don't know who came up with it, but it sounds very much like a sloth, so we've tried to steer away from that, but I guess it just really describes just the wording of the title. So the pilot was initially for a year. It began in April 2019, and it was to run to about April 2020. Thankfully, it was extended for another year in 2021. Essex has 12 different councils, and due to its geographical size, we divide the area into sort of 4 quadrants. Each quadrant has an acute hospital, a community or rehabilitation hospital, a hospice, and community teams. For this pilot, each quadrant has 1 full-time housing OT, and that's a senior OT. So we have the North Essex area, Mid Essex area, West Essex, and South Essex. For the first year, all 4 of the areas were working, and I think sort of towards June this year, South Essex pilot was stopped, so that doesn't run anymore. Right, so I'll go into my bit of colour. So basically this is a map of Essex. So Essex is located in the east of England with coastal views across the English Channel, though you can't really see them there. It is one of the largest local authorities in England, serving a population of about 1.5 million people. Our population is split across towns, across cities, villages, and large rural areas. We have areas of wealth, and we've also got quite high levels of deprivation as well. So there's a real mix there for us to work with. Essex does not have specific housing OTs. I think we are the first OTs that are based in housing, unlike some other counties. However, some of the housing associations do employ OT services, but this is not really consistent across the district councils in Essex. So the referral criteria, I must keep remembering to move my slide on. No. Referral criteria. So the referral criteria involves working with adults and children with life-limiting and life-altering injuries or conditions to prevent formal interim care placements for those whose home environment is not currently suited to their assessed needs. So to give you an idea of maybe the types of conditions that our clients may have, might be spinal injury, acquired traumatic or congenital brain injury, they could have an amputation, they could be frail, end of life, maybe requiring palliative care, we could have neurological conditions such as motor neuron disease or multiple sclerosis. Although the pilot initially mentioned that it was for adults and children, I think to date we haven't really had any referrals for children. It's mainly sort of been with adults. And basically what we're doing is providing solutions to progress discharge, and that's really centred on access. So it could be external access for ramps, lowering thresholds, widening doorways. It could be internal access, it could be for stairs, thresholds, and again, doorways. And the other thing that we're looking at is heating as well. So the main boundary for this pilot is the nature of the barrier that adult faces. Internal and external, so it could be a stair lift, a step lift, it could be a through floor lift, it could be a ramp. Even the main sort of reason why the referrers come through is because it has to do with access. But obviously as an occupational therapist having a holistic approach, if we had a referral that had one of these issues in it, then we would still go out, we'd maybe look at assistive equipment, we'd maybe look at rails, we'd maybe look at bathing, closomat. So I mean, we wouldn't just go in and just look at that area. So on accepting the referral, we ensure that it meets the criteria in relation to access. we would still complete the holistic assessment, as I said. So if an adult maybe requires a ramp to meet his needs and increases safety and independence, but they also had difficulty with, say, bathing transfers, then we would fast track the ramp, so that would happen fairly quickly. But the other side, maybe the wet room, that might go under the sort of mainstream DFG, so that's kind of how it would work. And one of the OTs that is actually in the pilot had installed a wet room for someone that had a bungalow. So it wasn't necessarily access, but it just made sense, you know, to continue with that, because obviously they were living in sort of kind of level accommodation. The evolution of the criteria, okay. So basically the pilot criteria, initially they got to be, when we first started the project, we kind of based it on the person had to either be in hospital or just recently discharged from hospital and to go home. 3 months into the pilot, we extended the criteria up to 6 weeks, because it seemed to make a lot of sense that maybe when community OTs were discharging hospital OTs were discharging the person into reablement, they may well not have looked at adaptations or gone to community in the hope that reablement would increase the person's function. So a lot of people that are coming out of hospital do go into reablement and have rehab. And obviously if that doesn't have an impact or it's not meeting their needs, then they can come to us to look at appropriate adaptations that will meet their needs. In September this year, we always did have a prevention criteria, but we kind of wanted to make it more a sort of an issue out of it. And it's been clarified in that way. The adult does not have to be recently discharged from hospital. It could be a district nurse or a community therapist, a physio or an OT. They may have visited them in the community and identified that maybe they're at risk of a fall or injury or subsequent hospital admission. And then they can then refer on to us for us to go out and visit. So just really extending, it just made sense. I mean, that really was what the Better Care Fund was all about anyway. It was all about prevention. So I shall move on a slide. A bit quick. So one of the great things is we've got joint commitment between health, housing and social care. There's a willingness to work together, to link our roles, increasing awareness of each other's roles and sort of offering training as well. And the great thing is we receive all our referrals directly into our email box. We triage them, we look through them, we make contact with the referrers, and we've obviously got a really good relationship with the grants team, and obviously we've got to see the client as well. So it works really well. There's no, it sort of goes straight to what it needs to go to. It doesn't sort of sit in any list to wait to be seen. It's dealt with really quite quickly. Our link with the grants teams means we can make recommendations very quickly, and in some cases and areas we can follow the adaptation works all the way through to completion. We have found we are the link between organisations and adults to support discharge planning. We are seeing a high proportion of adults who are unknown to services or at high risk, and they don't have any care or support already in place. Without our input, they may not have received advice or information about the property or been referred to social care for support. So that's kind of really quite an important part of our project as well. We've got direct access, as I said earlier, to talk to the referrer to gain further information. In some areas, we have faster access to grants officers to complete joint visits. Again, this speeds up the process because we've built up really sort of good rapport and good relationships with the grants officers and the teams. We are finding closer working with our partners, grants teams, hospital OTs and acute and rehab, our GP care advisors, our hospices and our reablement teams. And obviously we give sort of assistance and support to health colleagues, maybe looking at the person's long-term needs as well as maybe assistance and support to OTs that are actually based in social care. So if I now move on to the challenges of the pilot, each of the councils work in very different ways. So in my area in West, we tend not to really sort of do any sort of council work. It tends to be all DFG work or housing association work. Whereas on the other side of the county, they tend to incorporate council work as well as housing association, as well as private sort of DFG work. So working in quadrants means that some of us cover 3 to 4 councils. Keeping up with all the different DFG policies and ways of working across postcodes and hospital has been a challenge, particularly to begin with. Our roles are based in the district council grant teams. Each one of the councils have a different level of, when we first started, some of the councils had a different level of readiness for the pilot when we started. Some were prepared to involve us in the DFG process, while others preferred to keep the processes separate, quite reluctant sort of to engage. We also found that some councils didn't regard the housing OT's recommendation as any different from any of the, the referrals that received from social care. And in some instances, this didn't really speed up the recommendations. And one reason that they gave for that is they felt that we were going in very quickly, looking at the person's health need, prevention, and really using our skills and our judgment to progress that referral quickly. And there was maybe thoughts that perhaps the person in our service that came to our pilot was maybe queue jumping, rather than maybe go in comparison to maybe the social care sort of list. We'd also, one of the other challenges, the housing association rules are very interesting. I mean, I'm sure lots of you will agree with this. Obviously, some of the housing associations will not agree to adapt an upstairs bathroom or refuse a ramp at the front of the property. Some housing associations will not adapt properties that are under-occupied and focus on the person perhaps looking at rehousing instead. I guess one of the other challenges is that the nature of our health colleagues, the focus is very much on discharge rather than long-term sustainability. So initially it was quite slow to get the referrals, but I really feel that we've built up a really good rapport with our hospital OTs and the community OTs. And it's really all greatly improved since the pilot began in most areas. And in some cases, we could actually see the person in hospital, carry out the assessment in hospital. This is probably before COVID. And then we'd maybe go to the person's home and look at the environment so that we can really fast track all the adaptations. So if the person is discharged home, they don't have to live in that environment for very long. They're not in a micro environment. It means that it can be progressed quite quickly. One of the current challenges for the housing project is that we've seen a kind of real reduction in our referral rate, and really due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The reasons for the reduction in referrals are mainly due to the kind of normal referral process that we've been used to as housing OTs has changed. An adult may not be discharged back in a home. They may well go into COVID step-down beds. There's obviously an increased urgency to discharge quite quickly when the adult's medically fit, and maybe not look at the person's needs when they return home. So again, our referrals have reduced. Many adults do not wish to be admitted to hospital given the COVID risk. There's also the thoughts that hospital occupational therapists are perhaps not doing as many joint visits as they used to do prior to COVID. And obviously there's fewer elective surgeries as well. So that's just something to bear in mind at the moment when perhaps our rates aren't up as high as what they could be. Right, impact on timelines. So basically, from the date of the referral, the senior OT will visit. If the referral is appropriate, we can go out within a day or two. We can visit the client, complete our assessment, and put together all our specifications, our plans. We can get a quote. We only have to get one quote for the works. We don't have to get 2 or 3, so that speeds up the process. And the councils we have already identified, companies that they will go to in the first instance to get the quote. Councils process the grant quite quickly. I mean, I can send through, a request, and they're already sort of maybe calling the stairlift company or calling the ramp company, and then even they can be out within maybe a week or so, or even less. So the whole process is really kind of speeded up. And one of the really good bonuses are the DFGs for our pilot doesn't have any sort of means test. Some councils have £5,000, some councils have £10,000. So again, that's just something else that it's not a worry to the person, it's not a worry to us, and it just makes things much, much quicker. Okay. So the outcome for the clients, I think this is one of the things I think our pilot really does well on. The housing OT intervention allows the adult to stay at home and safely access their property. So really it underpins all the principles of the Care Act. We have priority intervention. So the housing OT has the ability to identify who will benefit most from the pilot. And not all adults who are referred wish to go through the DFG process. So in that case, we can still go out and visit, complete our assessment. We can offer advice, we can draw up plans, and we can support them through that process as well. So that's not to say we still can't become involved because it doesn't go through the DFG route. So I've kind of did a bit on sort of the outcome for services, which I think is really important. I've kind of listed some there. So being an early intervention housing OT has given us the opportunities and enabled us to build networks that we wouldn't normally have built, maybe working in social care. It's reduced spend on the health and social care budget as the person can remain as independent as possible in his adapted property, thereby reducing the need for home care. And obviously any sort of recommendations that we make are to meet the person's, not just their current needs, but their future needs as well. As I said earlier, we work closely with the council. We work closely with Council Housing Register to help match residents to suitable property. So on the other side of the county, the OTs may be asked to do a housing report, and they may go in and look at void properties to match the person up from the list, to make sure that we're using all the resources that we've got effectively, and we're not adapting when we don't really need to have to be. We have provided support and input to supported living accommodation and local planning for Section 106. The affordable housing new builds are above the minimum building regulation requirement. This means that the OT in housing are assisting councils to be proactive by bringing forward a supply of new build social rented housing that is adaptable and or fully accessible for wheelchair users. And in some cases that also includes adapting the kitchen to meet their needs. I think, oh, it's not going to work right yet. I think the last slide was just the big questions, and I can't seem to get hold of it. So, oh, here we go. That's us. So I know, Lorraine, you sent me some questions yesterday. I can briefly go through it if we've got time. I think you're on mute.
I think if you could answer the questions in the chat box, Christine, that'd be great. I think we'll have to move on to the next presentation, but thank you for that. That was great.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm not quite sure what's happened with Elaine, but we'll carry on to the next presentation. And hopefully we've got Lauren and Amelia from Carlisle City Council. And I know I have to press the buttons on this one, don't I? So Amelia and Lauren, if you're ready to go, I will move the slides on when you request.
Thank you, Paul. So my name is Amelia Morphet. I'm an environmental health officer, and that's my background. I currently manage one half of the environmental health team at Carlisle City Council that covers housing and pollution. It's a very diverse set of workload, and I currently have 3 officers that deal with DFGs on a day-to-day basis, and the new addition to the team from April, which is Lauren. And Lauren will be joining me later on in the presentation to tell you a bit more about what she's been doing. But what I'm going to run through first is how we've got to where we are in Carlisle and how the service has evolved over the last 8 or so years. So this is just a bit about Carlisle as an area. So if those who don't know where Carlisle is, we're on the border between Scotland and England. We market ourselves as the Great Border City, and we're the county town of Cumbria. The last census told us there was a population of nearly 109,000, and the table below just shows the population demographic for Carlisle. So you can see, I have noticed the table, the top is actually wrong, so all the columns should be shifted along to the right. So those over the age of 65, it's actually 21.9% in Carlisle, and for Cumbria it's 24.5%. So really what we're showing is that Cumbria has got higher than average percentage of those over the age of 65. A lot of the county is actually retirement capital, whether that's because it's just a nice place to live, being the lakes, or we've got cheaper house prices. Who knows? That comment doesn't apply to the lakes, so they are not cheap house prices. Thank you, Paul. So yeah, just a bit about remodelling the service over the last 8 years. We started originally to see in the old days when we used to have quite a large pot of money from the government and the council used to top it up, we used to process about 200 traditional disabled facility grants a year. And then we gradually saw a decline between 2009 and 2012, where it just started to drop off from about 200 plus to about 90 at the worst point. And we came to deduce that some of this was because referrals started dropping off through adult social care, the introduction of the Care Act assessment, and our local housing provider Riverside, which took over the council stock. They started actually delivering their own disabled facility grants. They didn't get them through the council anymore, so that's gradually why they dropped off. Now, looking at that information, what I've showed you about the population, that doesn't marry up whatsoever with what we were thinking. We were thinking that our DFGs would start going up because our ageing population is definitely showing us that it's going up. We were very averse to any risk in terms of DFGs as a council. We didn't do any marketing whatsoever of the service. We didn't do any integrated working with other agencies because we didn't want to shout, hey, we've got some money and we can help people in our community. It was very much seen that we didn't want to create any waiting lists, so we would just deal with what came through the door and what came through the traditional route of adult social care. The Carlisle, we went through, as a lot of local authorities have, remodelling, restructure after restructure. I think it was every 3.5, 4 years. At one point we were going through a restructure. We were part of the planning team for DFGs, then we were part of building control, then we were back to environmental health. So we've had a real good shuffle through. But one of the things that have come out of it is we had a lean systems review in 2012, and that brought about the introduction of starting to use procurement for our services. So we stopped getting 3 quotes. The technical officer stopped doing the drawings and the plans. We outsourced a lot of that work to the contractors. And one of the benefits for OTs in doing that is you're not having to deal with 3 contractors. You're not having to get 3 stairlift quotes. We've made it as simple as possible. And we also took the technical side out of the technical officers' roles as well to a certain degree, which again helped. That procurement framework has developed since it started to improve it as we've gone along. Carlisle initially started by themselves in 2012. Now we have 3 of the districts in Cumbria who are part of a joint procurement strategy. And for stairlifts, there's 4 of the 6 district councils in Cumbria that are part of that joint procurement strategy. We also have a Home Life Carlisle, who were established in 2012. They're our in-house home improvement agency, and they offer add-on services and complement what we do as a department, really, in environmental health. They don't process our mandatory DFGs like a lot of home improvement agencies, but they do process our discretionary add-ons, which are part of our RO policy. I suppose I'll start with how we got to where we got to. In terms of the uplift, there was a change again. The Better Care Fund came in and we saw our uplift go to 1.7 million under the Better Care Fund, which was a huge jump and something of a challenge because we'd been restructured to deliver £680,000 worth of funding, not 1.7 million. So this was a challenge to be able to get the throughput. We had to look at marketing, we had to look at different strategies. And part of that, it was really interesting that foundations came in and they did a review of what we were doing and looked at our RO assistance policy. Really brilliant because they talked to our finance people, they talked to our legal department, because everyone's like, no, you can't possibly just be flexible with your DFGs. You can't make it up and put whatever you want in your housing assistance policy to help the people of Carlisle, but we did, and that's what we did. And we've kind of never looked back from there. We're quite fortunate that we, as a district, we've got a quite generous entitlement. It is not the same across the whole of Cumbria. So the OTs, I don't know if there's any OTs on from Cumbria, but they'll probably argue there is a postcode lottery. in what you actually get in Cumbria and which services are available. We have a range of discretionary grants available now. We deliver the standard DFG up to £30,000. We have a top up of an extra 15,000. We have renovation grant top ups. We have relocation grants available. We have an independent living grant, and that's what we call our non-means tested grant. So that's up to £7,500. Again, all aiming to speed up service. We also have a discretionary pot that the OTs can dip into should, say, an extension come in at 52,000. That's obviously £7,000 over the grant maximum. Then they can apply to the discretionary pot to basically say this adaptation would not go ahead without the funding, where previously we were scrapping around trying to get charities to dip in. It was quite frustrating. So at the moment we have got that luxury fallback of a pot that we can dip into for that purpose. We've also, as part of the RRO policy following Foundation's review, some of the comments were around what can we do about integrated working and working with occupational therapists. We have a good working relationship with Cumbria County Council and the OTs there. And we needed to think about what we can do to sustain the service, because they were increasingly busy with what they were doing. They're not necessarily sending through traditional disabled facility work through, but we needed to think outside the box about how we can increase our throughput, especially around the needs assessment. So if the OTs at the county council were looking at 2 needs, it doesn't mean to say that we couldn't still look at a person with 1 need. And that's why we introduced our private OT service. So we had a procurement exercise, and we went about looking at how we can introduce a private OT service, and that's what we did. So we have I think we've had 3 lots of procurement rounds now, and we're still working with the same company. It's been quite successful. We only send simple cases to them, straightforward level access showers, straightforward stair lifts. The complex cases, they still stay with adult social care, and we haven't used the private OT service for any children's work as well. So just moved on to the next slide. Thank you, Paul. The latest version of RRO set out how we wanted to actually bring that in-house and what we could do. So we top sliced some of the DFG funding that we hadn't spent, and we did that in agreement with Cumbria County Council Adult Social Care. The idea was that we would have a specialist housing OT sat within Cumbria County Council Adult Social Care. And we would also have an in-house hospital discharge worker that would sit within Home Life Carlisle. So that went through, it was approved in the policy. We successfully recruited a hospital discharge worker, and they currently sit and work in Home Life. They mainly deal with deep cleans, heating type work, key safe, those sort of things that will help us get people back home and safely. They also link in a lot with the Safe and Warm grants that we do, and anything that can help people remain independent in their home. Now, in terms of the occupational therapist post that we wanted, unfortunately, we had a bit of a tough time trying to recruit to that. We had 2 rounds of recruitment, and we weren't successful for either. So whether there's a shortage out there, nobody wanted to come to Cumbria, or there just wasn't the right candidate out there when we were actually looking. We also experienced some issues with the county council, like any organisation. They started going through restructure and remodelling all at the same time, so it never got off the ground, unfortunately, and that's no slight at all on colleagues at county council. Politics got involved, managers got involved, and in the end we ended up getting the money back from the county council. And I was told, get your thinking hat on, Amelia, we need to sort this out, we need to come up with something. I think it was last August or autumn sometime, when they held the DFG champion events, there was a lady there speaking called Lynn Williams from Scarborough, and that gave me kind of some food for thought about how we could use that funding and how we could move forward with the trusted assessor. A part of her presentation, she was saying how they'd use trusted assessors to deliver straightforward telephone assessments for level access showers, to cut waiting times for their service by using trusted assessors. So when I was given the task of trying to create this trusted assessor role for the housing team. Then I got in contact with Lynn, and I think Roy assisted as well from Foundations to see what information was out there. Did somebody have job descriptions that they could help me with, that sort of thing. So it kind of all came together in the end. And we advertised, I think it was February, March, for the trusted assessor post. And then we recruited in March. It was 2 weeks before we went into lockdown. So it wasn't the ideal scenario at all. But then when is under the current situation. Thank you. I think this is Lauren's page.
Hi, I'm Lauren. So I'll just run through a little bit about the Disabled Adapt Trusted Assessors post. So what is a Disabled Adaptation Trusted Assessor? So it's an assessor is someone who can complete trusted assessments on behalf of and with the permission of an organisation to assess an individual's needs and non-complex housing levels, support levels in relation to their housing adaptation supported through the DFG. Next slide, please. So what was the overall purpose for the Carlisle City Council employing a trusted assessor? So it was to assess the residents of Carlisle and district who have identified as requiring assistance. So this includes the trusted assessor assessment for small and complex housing adaptations to enable independent living as defined by the criteria under the Council's Housing Assistance Policy and the Council's Annual Better Care Fund Action Plan for Disabled Adaptation Funding. So this come off the back of not being able to recruit an OT. The trusted assessor is the single point of contact between our OT referral partners, whether that's Adult Social Care, Cumbria NHS Partnership, the ICCs, private referrals. This enables all the referrals are assessed in an appropriate manner and appropriately redirected if required, for instance, back to Adult Social Care. This provides a consistent approach. Oh, sorry, the chat box is popping up on my screen. This provides a consistent approach which can support with speeding up the process and reduce the use of the private OT service for standard one need assessments, which will therefore positively impact the individuals who may have more complex needs. Next slide, please. So the trusted assessor carries out home visits and assessments and can process all aspects of the grants from start to finish, including your initial inquiries, the grant forms, completion and check-in, means testing, assessments of the property, grant approval, completion inspections. So this enables me to build up a rapport with the individual, offering a more seamless approach, and can also identify other support areas. So it's more of a holistic service that could refer into other organisations. Like Amelia said, I was employed in April 2020 during the national coronavirus lockdown. So as you can appreciate, it's a very new role and service, and there's still many learning experiences still to come. Next slide, thank you. So what do I bring to this role? So I've got extensive experience working within the health sector in many different environments, including hospitals, care homes, community and third sector organisations. I'm passionate about quality of life, prevention, intervention, physical, mental and emotional support. I love to improve an individual's journey, seamless, informative, supportive and effective, to make that initial contact something that's worth having. Have an extensive knowledge of services available in Carlisle, and I've got a lot of relationships with other professionals through previous jobs I've had, and how to access these services, whether that's referral or support for myself. I'm also very aware of my own competence. I know when to seek support, identify where to refer to and to whom, and I'm confident in my own abilities. So if something is out of my depth, I'm happy to refer that to somebody else and help that person go through that. Next slide, please. So how is it working in practice? I thought it would be really good to get a statement from our longest serving and trusted assessor DFG specialist, Housing and Grants Officer, Tanya Kirkbride. So since April, this is how she felt. So the post has created a more streamlined service, which is eliminating requirement for input from other agencies, a one-stop shop for a specific need. The trusted assessor role has incorporated a social care element to the team, as well as reducing adaptation timescales. Next slide, please. Amelia.
Oh, thank you. It's back to me. You can hear me. So to keep the service moving and adapting to local needs, it was key that we looked at this strategically and politically to take that risk on delivering a service. So following on for the foundations review, changing our RRO policy, looking at things differently, you know, trying the trusted assessor approach in-house. So at strategic level, the managers at the City Council have taken that on board and approved it, and we've got political support as well to take that change and take that risk, albeit with certain caveats in place that we risk register it and we monitor as we go along. I'm a great believer in not reinventing the wheel for many aspects of environmental health. If we've done a good job at something, I will happily share that information with others. You know, we have not, we've begged, borrowed and stealed job descriptions from other organisations. Lauren has had assistance from colleagues at Allerdale and other local authorities to take their forms and adopt them and make them suit our needs. So again, don't be afraid to ask if there's other local authorities out there that are willing to share that information. I think it's great. And these sort of webinars are a great source of sharing that information as well. What we have learned as well through this process is recruiting the correct person for the role, and that person having a good understanding of the job description is also key, really. Lauren's been absolutely brilliant. I've kind of coached her along for the past 5 months, but she's taken that initiative and run with it, and we're now currently actively starting to market the service that we're offering, and it's really kind of coming together quite nicely. It's very difficult at this stage to say where we are in terms of long term, but the aim is that it will be sustainable. It's quite difficult starting a job in this situation with the lockdown. We're all communicating through Teams, not in person. She's not been able to meet her colleagues in the office. So working remotely has its challenges. And whether that's for operating a new service or an existing service, we've had to, as a lot of local authorities have had to come up with new systems of working remotely with their contractors, with their partners, with their OT, so we can still deliver that service, but do it in a COVID safe manner as well. Next slide, please. So development areas, what we're trying to currently do and hoping to achieve. So when Lauren came to us, she didn't have the level 4 trusted assessor qualification. That training is not currently accessible. So as soon as it's available, Lauren will happily be going on it. In the meantime, I think she's done quite a lot of foundations training, ferret means test training, benefits training, lots of internal training. I think for the first month, that's all she did was training. So she's quite happy now to get out and about and into the community and actually doing a role. We've been busy, like I said, reviewing, amending leaflets, information, trying to amend our working practices, continuing reviewing what we're doing, linking in with other departments in the council, whether that's planning, building control, the homeless service. We've got a benefits agency, and Lauren and Laura, our hospital discharge working, are going to start working together more closely to think about how they can come together and really improve the service offer. So one of the questions popped up before, how do we pay for the private OT service? So it's a one-off charge for the report, and we include that within the fee structure for DFGs as a professional report, like you would a structural surveyor or an architect's fee. We include it in that way to recoup the cost to pay for it. So
Amelia, is it possible to answer the questions online afterwards?
No problem. I was just covering it for the next point, Lorraine. Sorry.
Brilliant.
So although this is a new role for fixed terms, we want it to remain sustainable for the future. So we use case manager, foundations case manager, and we're able to pull the data off to show what Lauren's cases are, what our caseload is like. as a caseworker and as a trusted assessor. So we can pull that data out to then put that information back to our strategic managers and our portfolio holders and council executive to hopefully fund that past the 4 years. So at the moment, it's not a chargeable service, but we do charge for the private OT service. But in the long term, the vision is probably to make that charge as part of the fee that we do actually pay, ensure that we can keep that post running. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amelia and Lauren. There's quite a few questions that are on the chat, if you'd be able to maybe have a look at it. Just a couple of people have been asking about the PowerPoints, but the video or the recording is going to be on YouTube. So thank you very, very much. And now we're going to go on. We're going to go on to Louise Powell, who is the Heart Manager. Here we are. Louise is actually with one of her occupational therapists, who is Alison Hughes. So I'm going to pass over to you, Louise and Alison.
Okay, I'll crack on. I'm conscious of time, and so what I'll do is I'll summarise. I'll summarise the heart service for us, and I haven't got a presentation. However, what I will do afterwards, I'll share some links to the website for Heart, which takes you directly to a lot more information regarding our financial assistance policy, which basically guides our practice. So I will share those links afterwards. And Alison is here because Alison is one of the senior OTs in Heart, and has been around in Heart for a number of years, pre-Heart, and also in the newer Heart partnership. So just to give you some history of Heart, Heart was essentially born in November 2016, and it is a partnership arrangement in Warwickshire between the District Council and the Borough Councils. So that's Warwickshire County Council, Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, Rugby Council, North Warwickshire, Stratford-upon-Avon and Warwick District. And Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council are the host of the partnership. So I'm employed by Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council as the team manager. I'm also an OT by profession, and the head of service is Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council. I'll go on later on to explain about the makeup of the service and how the team come together. So in 2016, the shared service agreement was drawn up to deliver an integrated service to enable customers to remain independent in their home, to have homes that were fit for purpose, and more importantly, their chosen home environment. So as I've said, that we as Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council are the host for the Heart Partnership. So within Heart, we have senior OTs, with Alison being one of them. And then we have a team of OTs, and the OTs are all employed by Warwickshire County Council. We then have housing assessment officers, and they are employed by the different partner councils. So some are employed by county, some are employed by Rugby, North Warwickshire, and so on. And I'll talk more in a moment about some of the challenges of that. We also have in our team a senior surveyor and excuse me, and home improvement officers, and they are our technical support. So that is the structure of the Heart Partnership. So in essence, instead of having services delivered by the different borough councils, it is an integrated Warwickshire partnership. Okay. So just to give a bit of background about Warwickshire, at the last count last year, we had 578,000 residents. Generally, you may hear people talking about North Warwickshire and South Warwickshire. We do cover the whole of Warwickshire, so it's a massive area, right from near Birmingham to the edge of the Cotswolds. So we are a huge service. So what I wanted to sort of focus on today and I've condensed down a little bit because of time. I just wanted to focus on the role of the OT, obviously because that's what we're talking about today. And what I will say is the role of the OT in Hart is a diverse role. And I think Alison can perhaps vouch for that in a moment. And it's a specialist housing role. With the OTs in Hart and the housing assessment officers, we complete the assessment and we deliver the grant from beginning to end. Now, some of you may actually be OTs working in a service where you hand off to a grants officer or your home improvement agency and so on. But what we do in Hart, there are limited hands off, which is the beauty of our partnership. So the OT will complete the assessment. They will administer the DFG, so they'll complete the means test. They will source contributions from charities if needed, and etc. They will use our FLAIR system, which is our grants administration system, to actually deliver the whole service. So I'll talk more in a moment about the challenges of that. So we work very closely with the children's service, because we are an all-age service, so you know, from babies up till very older age, so all age services. So we work very closely with our children's teams, our OTs in there, our hospital services, our colleagues in Warwickshire County Council, our OT colleagues in the various teams in there, and our other partner organisations. So so we receive referrals from everywhere, whether it be from the person themselves, their neighbour, their friend, family, and we receive referrals via Warwickshire County Council too. So that is the beauty of our service, is that you haven't got to go to a GP to be referred, etc. It is a self-referral. In our team, we've created some new posts recently, and we've recruited one person, and we're recruiting to a couple of other people at the moment, which is the development in our service of housing duty officer. So that is to actually, that's a dedicated core function duty team to deal with the referrals as they come direct into Hart. And the thinking behind that is we have grown, and we've got immensely busy as a service since Hart was created, and we have a bit of a waiting list, so we actually need our officers to be out there doing our assessments and completing our work. So hence why the duty function has been created, and that is purely a duty role. So that's a new development in recent months this year. So in terms of the OT role, the OTs are professionally supervised by the senior OTs, such as Alison and her colleagues. So that's where the professional supervision comes from. And they have to complete all their mandatory training and so on, as guided by Warwickshire County Council. So from a professional point of view, they are suitably managed, and in terms of being registered. So that is the clinical supervision side, and obviously as team manager I'm an OT as well, so that's an added layer of sort of professional supervision and accountability. With Hart itself, we have a very wide range of grants, and in the links I'll share afterwards, it will all be explained in there, because we have, not only do we have the DFG, we have the mandatory DFG, we have a discretionary DFG, which can top up, and we have an interest-free loan. So in essence, we can go up to £50,000. But that will all be explained in our financial assistance policy, which I'll share afterwards. We have a home safety grant, which is up to £500, which is a person's allocation, which is every 3 years. So that's for purely preventative measures like falls prevention, reduction of accidents. We also have a hospital discharge grant, which is about preventing readmission to hospital and to facilitate hospital discharge, and that is up to £10,000, and that is actually non-means tested. So that is a huge advantage to us. In terms of the role of the OT, I've already mentioned about the OT will complete the assessment and administer the DFG grant and will be essentially the case manager. The case manager goes right, manages the case right through to the end. Sorry, I keep getting distracted by the questions popping up. So the OT, or the Housing Assessment Officer, is essentially the project manager, which, when you look at the opportunities of the role, it is what I would consider as a contemporary role for an OT. I don't know of any other areas where there is an integrated service such as ours in existence, but I would be happy to know if there are any similar services. From a skills point of view, I think, so we'll come to Alison in a moment, but I think Alison can vouch for the fact that you definitely have to have, skills to be able to multitask, to project manage, to be involved in, major builds, major works. Our technical team are there and they manage the project builds, but we are there sort of case managing all the way along. So that is a huge opportunity for an OT. It can be a bit daunting, I have to say. Some people may think it's not for them, but from an opportunity point of view, it's definitely a huge opportunity to develop skills. The challenges from my point of view it's perhaps not what I would consider a traditional OT role. We multi-system use and maths and figures and administering grants. Some might say that is that an OT role? Personally, yes, I think it is, because actually it's all part of the same process, getting to the end goal and meeting the person's needs. It's a multi-layered process, which sometimes can be a challenge. And yes, I mean, it's not a traditional OT role because you're combining the role of the OT, the grants officer, into one. But the huge bonus for the customer is that it's one person from beginning to end, and all of those handoffs and those huge delays are drastically reduced. The OT is involved in procuring the contractors, the architects via our procurement framework. Excuse me, via our procurement framework, which is already established and set. That is part of the OT role as well. So again, in other services, you may expect your grants officer to do that or your technical team to do that. But with us, that's not the case. I'd like to perhaps just hand over to Alison now to perhaps talk about, so I'm just are we okay for time, Lorraine and Paul?
Well, we are running a little bit late, so yeah. We're waiting for Pamela. But yeah, if Alison would like to say something, just maybe summarise everything, that would be great, but thank you.
Yes, hello there everybody. My name's Alison within Heart, hoping you can hear me. I've had quite a bit of experience within different authorities. I started my career with HAT, Housing Assessment Team, before it was changed to Heart. So the OT service within Warwick, they actually had introduced a different model. The OTs could choose which specialism they prefer. So we had housing, personalisation and reablement, and I had the opportunity to go straight into housing. Part made it easy for the OTs to really collaborate with the housing team because we were relocated within the borough council. This really improved the relationships between OTs, and at the end of the day, it helps our customers, because I would say that the OTs are a resource for all the borough councils, and they're highly respected. So the OT service, with all our OTs, they are specialists within housing. We've got technical team, because some OTs don't know the different constructions of properties, so we tap into that. We also duty service, we see it as an opportunity for every contact we have with the customer to make a difference. So we complete a assessment over the telephone, and this might be whether there's any housing needs for that person. For example, it could be energy efficiencies, a DFG, or it could be a direct issue.
Alison, is it possible just to turn your volume up a little bit? Oh, okay.
Is that better?
Yeah,
Sorry.
people were saying, and maybe we just need to, we've got Pamela waiting. I'm sorry, if we could just maybe a few more minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. So all in all, the OT service, the heart, I mean, we're continually improving our service review. So we're trying to make the delivery of our service better for our customers. It's about being the single contact for that customer and customer. Louise, do you want to finish off?
No, probably just to say is what I'll do is I'll share a link to our Heart website where you can find our financial assistance policy, and then that will just sort of share more about our service. Just wanted to give you an idea of referral numbers just quickly before we finish. Last year we had 3,000 referrals into the Heart service. So that was just to give an idea of referral numbers, and at the moment we have nearly 30 staff in total, and I think that was it. But feel free for anyone to email myself afterwards. And there's just a question in the chat about would OTs design scheme and draw plans, etc. No, we personally wouldn't.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for telling us about the famous Heart scheme. Louise, you'll put your email addresses maybe on the website, and there's quite a few questions on there. And just to tell people that we're going to summarize the questions and answers, and hopefully they will end up on the Facebook page. I'm going to hand over now, and speeding up and up and up to Pamela. Pamela, welcome. Would you like to go ahead? Go ahead. Hi everyone. We're just waiting for Pamela. It shouldn't be too long.
Hello.
Hi Pamela.
Hi. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Welcome.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Hi everyone. So yeah, my name's Pamela Armstrong, and I'm a housing occupational therapist. Today I'm going to talk to you about integrated working and my role within housing and how it's currently working in our area. So, So I'm part of a really small team, and I'm on secondment at the moment from the adult social care team in Allerdale, which in Cumbria is a two-tier authority. My background is within adult social care, and I worked within the Allerdale adult social care team since October 2011. I feel the biggest benefit of being on secondment from adult social care is being able to prioritise the housing referrals and quickly assess the people that have been referred to me. My waiting list is about 2 weeks. Sometimes, depending on the nature of the referral, I can see people much quicker. But yeah, basically I can see people quite quickly. As an occupational therapist in adult social care, I felt that housing referrals weren't as high a priority. So your manual handling assessments, your safeguarding, postural seating, and General Care Act assessments, I felt were prioritised over the housing adaptations assessments. I feel that, you know, a person's home underpins everything that they're able to do and that what they want to achieve in life. A safe, accessible, a warm and friendly home environment is absolutely crucial to their independence and their well-being. So when the opportunity arose for the housing secondment, I jumped at the chance. So referrals for myself still are progressed by adult social care. So they come into the adult social care system, which has been routine for a number of years, and they are screened by a duty or short-term occupational therapy team. And they assess and screen whether they require a Care Act assessment or whether they can be referred to myself for a Housing Authority OT assessment, which I'll come onto that a little bit later. So when the role was first introduced in November 2017, the Housing OT at the time devised a proportionate and quicker housing assessment, and that included what we needed it to. It was focused on the Care Act assessment, but is a lot more proportionate, a lot briefer. Due to the assessment being much shorter, I'm able to pick up between 5 and 7 cases a week, and that's me being part-time as well. So I work 30 hours a week over 4 days. I still use the adult social care computer system and document all my notes and all my assessments, which again for me is an added benefit, because I can see the previous assessments that the person's had, I can see the history and any professional input that they've got from social workers, other occupational therapists they've had in the past, and ROVs, any rehab officers for the visually impaired. That's a service that we offer in Cumbria, obviously if they've got eyesight impairments. So I've been doing the role now for just over 2 years. And I do get a lot of questions being based within the local authority from various housing colleagues, and that might be just asking a simple question as, has that referral for Mrs. Brown been made yet? And I can quickly check the system and find out whether the referral's being made. If it hasn't, it gives them the chance to go back to Mrs. Brown and chat to her again and offer support if she needs it to make that referral. Another benefit is that the clinical support that I still receive regular clinical supervisions from my OT manager within adult social care and support from the team, which is a benefit, especially because of the current climate. It's obviously been quite a lonely experience working from home, so being involved as part of the OT team was a big benefit. So at the moment, I'm completing assessments over the phone or video calls where the person's able to and gives permission to. If the person's not able to and they are willing to let family support them, I'll liaise with family members. They may be able to use WhatsApp better. And that's where a lot of my assessments have been taking place. In order to achieve the best possible outcomes from the person, evidence is absolutely crucial, and I seek a lot more evidence now than what I did in the past pre-COVID, and that's purely because I was able to observe the person's functional assessment myself. Now I do seek a lot more evidence from the likes of GPs, physios and carers to see how they are managing in that home environment. This allows me to identify personalised outcomes and goals with the person, which is a core OT value, and then also link in and make the appropriate recommendations to the housing association or Allerdale Borough Council if they own their own property. I'd say most of my assessments and referrals are about 90% are adaptations. And rehousing assessments are coming in and starting to increase more and more. And I do work quite closely with the grant officers, contractors, architects, which has really sped up the adaptations process. So being able to review the plans together, the schedules of works, arrange the quotes, which is part of my role with the stairlift companies. If I need something in particular for a person on the stairlift, I'll arrange that quote with them. In terms of the contractors, we now have a framework which is working very well, and as I said, it has improved and sped up the timescales. It's also improved both our knowledge and skills of how adaptations work and are able to be done. We have monthly meetings with the contractors, basically now because of COVID. It's just to keep on top of the adaptations and the timescales that they're able to book them in. This allows us to review the person and making sure that, for example, if we are looking for a wet room adaptation and the person won't have access to the toileting facilities for that short term, we will actually look and discuss with them if they've got other toileting facilities in the property, or whether they need a commode allocated and prescribed. So it's a very much two-way process and understanding the person's needs. Again, working very closely with the grant officers has improved my knowledge of the means testing, assessments and passporting benefits, and since supporting them, it's made me more aware, so I can make the person more aware at the assessment process what that means testing is going to look like. When the adaptations are complete, we work together, we review the adaptations together where possible, myself and the grant officers. And rather than duplicating the work, the grant officer would look at the quality of the work, and I would be looking at the functional ability of the person and making sure that the person can use the adaptation safely, and whether they need equipment. So for example, if a wet room is being complete, if they are Care Act eligible, I would be putting that information onto the adult social care system to justify that they are Care Act eligible, and then I would order that equipment through ELMS. So that there would be no need to refer it back to the adult social care team. It can pretty much all be done. A good thing as well about the monthly meetings with the contractors is that we're able to manage and progress urgent assessments as well. So we've had a couple of palliative cases and people with life-limiting conditions that have come in just recently, and we're able to discuss those cases as part of a multi-agency approach and prioritise those assessments over all the other people that are waiting. So that's been a huge benefit to the process that we're working with. So integrated working as a housing occupational therapist gets a real big thumbs up from me. I mean, you can see from the table here that we've made some huge improvements over the last few years since the housing OT role has been invested and seconded from adult social care. So for example, we've raised a lot of awareness of the grants and the discretionary grants that we offer. The frameworks are a huge benefit. We only now need one quote for the likes of stair lifts, wet rooms and ramps. And the stair lifts now we offer a 5-year warranty. Due to the increase in the number of referrals and being integrated within housing, we also worked very closely with some schemes. We actually funded through the discretionary grant 18 level access showers in an over 55s housing scheme, which was really, really beneficial not only to the housing scheme but has also prevented a lot of referrals coming into us at staggered stages. So that was a huge benefit and we got such positive feedback from that. Prior to COVID, I started using the Wentworth scale, which is the Warwick and Edinburgh mental wellbeing scale. And that was to collate some evidence because there's not a lot of evidence research out there. And basically we wanted to show the difference that the role was having within housing. Unfortunately, due to COVID, that has tailed off a bit, and it's something that I'm working on. It's on my to-do list to bring back again when the time is right. And a major one for me is the use of the discretionary funding and the relocation grants. So I'll just go into that a little bit now. So the relocation grant is basically a top-up of £3,000 to help towards a person moving. And I've got a little case study on that, which I can share with you in a second. And the top-up, on top of the mandatory means-tested grant, we also offer a £10,000 top-up as well, where that's needed. So I've just drawn together a table here, and as you can see, with the timescales is the biggest difference that we have done over the last few years since the role has been integrated. As you can see, we've made a huge difference of the timescales from the occupational therapy assessment to the actual completion of the adaptations. And there was a question, I think that was sent in last night, that asked about when do we review and when do we close, I think, the adaptations, the person. And basically once I've made my recommendation to the appropriate housing authority or the housing association, we obviously get the quotes and the drawings, any schedules of works, any plans, and we make sure that they're all agreed to go ahead. The person receives a copy of any drawings and make sure they're happy with that as well. But once that's stable and we're waiting for the adaptation to proceed, for Allerdale, they go into like a review tray. Once the adaptation's complete, we pick up the case again and review that and determine whether the person needs, as I said before, any equipment or any referral to any other service, for example, a benefits check or anything that they might need in the area. And then if they don't, if all their needs are met, basically we would close the case. So as I mentioned earlier, just a couple of case studies that really show sort of the integrated working at its best, really. So this young lady, as you can see, the details on the screen, she was young, she was basically staying on a friend's sofa, and we got an urgent referral over the Christmas period. She was going to be discharged from hospital as homeless, and she'd had a recent amputation, so she couldn't go back to her first floor flat. Basically, this meant for us joint working with multiple agencies. So basically housing options, the homelessness services, housing providers, the grant officers, the social worker, wheelchair services, the grant officer, and carers, and also the neighbouring district as well. So the homelessness team funded her stay in a hotel because our temporary accommodation unfortunately wasn't suitable for her, and she couldn't access our temporary accommodation that we have in our area. This meant for us having to quickly rehouse her because it was costing a substantial amount of money to house her in a hotel, and she couldn't have remained in hospital because she was medically fit and she wasn't eligible for residential care. She's only young and she had no Care Act sort of eligible needs to warrant residential care. So luckily our bungalow became available in the neighbouring district, so that meant we were able to sort of quickly get the paperwork done for her and joint visit with contractors. The property was partly adapted. It already had a level access shower, it already has level access, and it also had an adapted kitchen, which was a real benefit. The only problem being she couldn't physically access the bungalow. So basically we were up against a timescale and wanting all the internal doors and the front door and the back door adapted so that it was wide enough for her wheelchair. This case in itself highlighted some issues that in our area we maybe haven't been working as closely with the acute hospitals as what we could, and that we've learned recently, and I've started attending weekly meetings with the acute hospital where a multi-agency professionals attend and discuss each person in the hospital. If housing is an issue, I'm that housing link person, so I might pick up the case, I might make a referral to adult social care to start looking at adaptations. I might liaise with our hoarding hub if housing conditions have been identified as a problem and that the person cannot return home. So that's a new sort of part of the role that we're starting to progress with, which is quite exciting. So while this young lady remained in temporary accommodation, within days we basically got the doors widened and made the home sort of accessible for her to move in. It was a really good outcome for this young lady, and we used the relocation grant to cover the rental costs, basically because the housing association wanted to get her in there and signed up as soon as possible. And if she didn't start paying the rent, or if housing benefit didn't start funding her rent, she wouldn't have been allocated that property. So we used the relocation grant to cover that cost. Okay. The overall aim is that we've reduced the need to adult social care. This young lady is still working with reablement. She is in a property that meets her needs, and she's secured her own tenancy for the first time, and she's still working with the drug rehab team to help her manage more.
Pamela, we need to summarize it shortly.
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries. This is just a quick case study a little while ago, so it just shows that we can get stair lifts installed in quite a good, timely manner. From this case study, we've actually managed to get stair lifts installed much quicker, although COVID hasn't really helped that, but prior to COVID, we are starting to work much quicker. And something that I want to work on is recycling stair lift schemes as well, and that's something that's on my agenda to work on as part of my role within housing. Just a few case quotes from people following our interventions, which is all very positive. And the whole process of working together with the grant officers and being in how just helps that seamless process of improving people's lives and independence and their overall well-being. People are safe at home. We work on preventing hospital admissions where possible and supporting safe hospital discharges. Ultimately, we still work very closely with the adult social care OT team, and that's the real benefit I feel with being on secondment and having sort of a two-pronged approach, if you like. So yeah, so that's me. So integrated working, just a little summary from me.
Thank you very much. Brilliant. And
yeah, so I was nominated last year, which was a real honour. Got to the finals, and it was just brilliant to see what was there, really. So there's a lot more on the table for Allerdale, and so much more that we want to achieve and build upon. And there's been a lot of information from the previous speakers and a lot of questions I can see popping through. So I'll do my best to answer those.
Brilliant.
And
thank you very much.
My contact details if anyone wants to get in.
Brilliant, thank you. I think there's some questions on there, Pamela, as well. So I just want to say a really big thank you to all the presenters for answering the questions, and thank you for everyone that's attended. There's rather a large amount of you, about 250 of you, maybe 300 on, because there's some on Facebook as well. And I was going to say, if there's any webinars that you think that foundations should run, maybe you can email me, and the slides will be on the YouTube site, the Foundation's YouTube site. So please email me. And thank you for that lovely comment. Fantastic webinar. And we're going to finish now. So thank you again, and see you all. Oh, I know what I was going to say. The last thing. DFG champions. What I was just going to say is that we're having a webinar in December on children's paediatric DFGs and also autism as well. So yeah, look forward to seeing you in December, and also because Paul's having a webinar next week. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Thank you, Lorraine, and hope to see you next week on the Air Meet, where you can talk to each other as well and do speed networking. That would be fantastic. And as Pamela mentioned, last year's awards, we're going to host this year's awards as part of a virtual roadshow. which is going to be on the 1st of December. So lots of other exciting news coming fairly soon. So if you want to hear all about it, and I promise it really is coming soon this time, that we will have a virtual roadshow on the 1st of December. So put the date in your diary and we'll see you then, and throughout November as well. So thank you very much to all the speakers today. So I've got my Super OT t-shirt on, and again I must apologise to AKW for painting in it, but we'll see you all again next week.
Bye-bye.